What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celios Network for another episode of QCC, the series where I answer your questions, review your comments, and consider your concerns. Today we're continuing with the topic of Evolving Skies, which is the next main set of the Pokemon TCG coming to North America, and I'll be using the comments, questions, and concerns from the previous episodes of QCC regarding this topic of Evolving Skies. So your question, comment, or concern may be featured today, and if not, it can still be featured in the future episodes regarding Evolving Skies. Before we get into the video, shout out to my sponsor, PotownStore.com, the best place to get Pokemon TCG online codes, and be sure to use code CELIO for 5% off. Also, shout out to PokemonCard.io, a proud sponsor of this channel, and where you can find all of my standard format deck lists, which I update regularly, and you can also share your own decks with the community on there by making a free account. Links to both of those websites are in the description down below. Today we're starting with a comment that comes from YouTube user Snowgy, and Snowgy says, will Peonia and Dream Ball have any viability whatsoever? It looks like it could possibly have some niche in rogue decks that have stage 2 Pokemon that are very good, but are hard to get out on the board sometimes. So I think this is a really awesome question with two cool unique cards, so let's dive into it. Peonia is a supporter card that came out in Chilling Reign. It allows you to pick up 3 of your prize cards, and then you put 3 cards from your hand back down into your prize cards. So it gives you choices here to pick up 3 random prize cards, and then if you don't like what those were, if they're not the helpful prize cards you needed out of your prize cards, you could just put them back. Or you could look at it as a draw 3 and replace those 3 cards with 3 cards you didn't need from your hand. So I like that it gives you the option to put all, none, or some amount of those prize cards back down, and your opponent doesn't even have to know if you're keeping some of those prize cards, if you're only putting back cards from your hand, etc. Now, the card Dream Ball is coming out in Evolving Skies. It is an item card that reads, you can only play this card when you draw it as a face-down prize card before putting it into your hand. Now, this is not going to work with Peonia to my knowledge, but how it will work with Peonia is that you can choose Dream Ball from your hand to be the card that you're putting down back into your prize cards, so you can pick it as a prize card when you knock something out, and then use Dream Ball. Now, Dream Ball reads, search your deck for a Pokemon and put it onto your bench, not a basic Pokemon, just any Pokemon. So it can be a Stage 1, a VMAX, a Stage 2. It can be anything you want out of your deck. So there is an interesting Japanese list that I'll show here that uses a few different Stage 2 Pokemon, one Peonia, one Dream Ball. So if you're able to Peonia the Dream Ball into your prizes, and then take the Dream Ball as a prize, you can get one of these useful Stage 2 Pokemon out, which are Seismitoad and Dusknoir are the ones that they're choosing to use in this deck. But you also have the Inteleon from Chilling Reign, that if you don't have an extra Drizzile, you can always just fetch that Inteleon from Chilling Reign and slap it onto your board as well. Also, slightly off topic for anyone interested, the Seismitoad is from Cosmic Eclipse, and it has the ability Bulldoze, which allows you to once a turn search your deck for a card and put it on top of your deck. Basically Smooth Over from my Cargo from Celestial Storm. And then the Dusknoir is the one from Vivid Voltage, which says that all special energy now only provide a colorless energy and have no extra effects. So the Seismitoad is an extra consistency card that allows you to just get any card you need, then draw it with Suicune, and Dusknoir can disrupt a deck that's heavily relying on special energy. Now, typically I'd say this combo of getting your one Peonia and your one Dream Ball and making it work exactly how you want it to would be kind of a far-fetched combination to pull off, at least consistently. Maybe you'd get it 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 games, and it would be helpful in those games. But since this deck is using the Drizzile Inteleon Shady Dealings engine, with an Inteleon Shady Dealings, you can search for Peonia Dream Ball, slap it into your prizes, take a knockout with Suicune V, get the Dream Ball, and then there you go. You either have Dusknoir into the field to help against decks that rely on special energy, you have Seismitoad, so you can guarantee any card with the combination of Seismitoad's ability plus Suicune V's ability, or you can get another Inteleon Chilling Reign down if you need extra damage to help you out with the game. So Because of Inteleon and Drizzile, this combination is actually not that crazy to consider. Now, do I think it's worth it? The main question here, now that we have a way to consistently, or at least pseudo-consistently do it, is going to be, are the stage 2s that we're getting into play worth it? Are they making changes in the game? Are they the difference between winning and losing? So is including these 2 cards, the Peonia Dream Ball, plus however many stage 2s you want to include, are all those deck slots worth it? So with Dusknoir against a Rapid Strike Urshifu deck, or a deck only playing special energies, I would say the Dusknoir is probably going to end up being worth it if you can get it out in time. The Seismitoad can guarantee you a Melanie to accelerate your energy. It can guarantee you a boss if you need it. It can guarantee you Reset Stamp. It can fetch you any 1 card. But Drizzile and Inteleon are already almost fetching you any single card you need, so I'm not sure if the Seismitoad is completely necessary. There might be other good choices for stage 2s or even stage 1s to cheat out onto the board, but I do think because Drizzile and Inteleon make this Peonia Dream Ball combination a little more possible and viable than you might think, it's a good idea to keep an eye on stage 2s that might be good to cheat out if you have extra room for, let's say, 4 slots in a deck, the Peonia, the Dream Ball, and then 2 stage 2s. So I do think down the line this could be viable based on how impactful the stage 2s that you can cheat out are, if you're playing a Drizzile and Inteleon deck already, and also do you have room in that deck list to not hurt the consistency of the deck, but also add in Peonia, Dream Ball, and a couple of stage 2s. So I'm going to say that it could be viable. I don't think it's incredibly strong right off the bat, or at least with the stage 2s that I'm seeing here from this Japanese list. But with some further thought and maybe a couple more sets down the line, there could be some stage 2s that prove to be very, very useful to try to cheat out with this Peonia Dream Ball combo that's helped by Drizzile and Inteleon. So definitely keep it in mind. And thank you, Snowgy, for submitting this question today. Next, we've got a comment from Yi, and it is a very long comment all about Rayquaza VMAX. So we're going to dial this down to 1 section of the comment, but thank you for writing all of this. And if anybody wants to go back to the first episode of QCC and discuss this with Yi, feel more than free to. So we're going to dial it into the last part of this comment where they say, overall, Rayquaza is a top-tier archetype that could really become BDIF if it gets the right support. I think the deck struggles with its matchups more than anything, meaning that it struggles with matchups rather than the deck's inherent consistency and power. I think Rayquaza has a decent chance to be played in other decks for draw power, as it has no weakness, which is something that I have not seen a lot of people considering. Overall, I'm excited and I want to know what you guys think. I'm probably going to talk about Ray's matchups in another comment. So what I want to focus on here is Rayquaza being a top-tier archetype, where this person thinks the deck struggles, and also it being played in other decks as draw power. So I do think it struggles in matchups, basically the Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX matchup, because that can take out your Mareeps or Flaffies. And I think the way that you deal with that is relying more heavily on Rose, either as a deck as a whole or just in that matchup. Because if your opponent snipes your Mareep Flaffy or double Flaffy, double Mareep, they're not putting any damage on your Rayquaza VMAX, and that just leaves you free to 2-shot Urshifu VMAX before they can 2-shot or possibly even 3-shot you with Urshifu, depending on if they get Inteleon from Chilling Reign setup or not. And if they just focus on your little guys on the bench, you can actually just win by manually attaching and using Rose, manually attaching and using Rose just a couple times. And currently I'm playing 3 Rose, a Palpad, and an Eldegoss in my Rayquaza VMAX list, because I think Rose is very incredible in Rayquaza VMAX. So I think that's the way that you try to deal with that matchup. And I do think Rayquaza has inherent power, and they really gave us a lot of consistency for the deck in Evolving Skies, between the stadium that allows you to search out a Dragon or Lightning Pokemon, Mareep Flaffy, and Rayquaza VMAX itself having draw power. I think the deck has everything in it that it needs to be good. Currently, I don't think it's one of the top 3 decks going in to the Sword and Shield Evolving Skies metagame, but I do think it's a functional, strong deck that will definitely be a part of our metagame. As for Rayquaza being played in other decks, I do think it could be experimented with in the Sylveon Rapid Strike box, because you already have Octillery that searches for Rapid Strike cards. You have Rapid Strike Tower, which gives Rayquaza free retreat if it needs it. And it would count as an extra typing on the bench for Sylveon VMAX's second attack, which does 70 plus 30 more for each unique type you have on the bench. And since that deck right now, in at least my list, does not play any dragon type Pokemon, Rayquaza VMAX would always be adding a Pokemon type to the bench for Sylveon VMAX's attack, while also giving you the ability that Rayquaza has, Blue Sky Surge, discard your hand, draw 3. So if you just need one more card, that could always help out as well. So I think that's a natural spot to consider it in, but really any deck that would be able to reasonably get out a stage 1 or a VMAX, however you want to look at it, and doesn't mind having it on the bench, because Rayquaza VMAX does not have a weakness and it can just be a pretty tanky bench sitter to help you discard and draw more cards. You could consider that in any deck where you think it might fit in and you need a little extra draw power. Doc Poke says, energy removal is phasing out, it seems, as energy acceleration and low energy cost attacks are rising. So will bench sniping become the next thing people rant about? Great observation here that Crushing Hammer and Team Yell Grunt are pretty much non-existent in the current competitive standard format metagame, at least for online events being held on play.limitlesstcg.com, where most people are competing these days. And I believe Crushing Hammer was also pretty vacant in the Players' Cup 4 competition as well. I do think there's always some sort of aspect or strategy that players will complain about, whether that be energy removal like Crushing Hammer, or item lock like Seismitoad EX, or special condition locks like Excelgor Gothitelle. There's been many throughout the years, and most of the time they are strategies that you can choose to counter with deck building or learn to play around with skillful play. So taking into account that I think there's always something that players will complain about in pretty much any game, and specifically here in the Pokemon trading card game, I think bench sniping is much more manageable than something like Crushing Hammers or something like ADP's GX attack gatekeeping what cards and decks you can reasonably expect to do well with in competition. The bench sniping thing, I really like that being the problem, because Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX is not necessarily a very easy deck to play, and you can definitely beat players playing it even if you have a bad matchup against it, if you're playing better than your opponent. Whereas in the Crushing Hammer days, you know, you couldn't outplay your opponent flipping heads. Against ADP Zacian, you can't outplay your opponent just having 2 manual attachments to ADP and the game basically being sealed from there. So against Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, there's ways to counter it, like Fan of Waves, shuffling back their Rapid Strike energy, or even just knocking out their Octillery or knocking out their Sobble so they can't search for what they need, or maybe just benching one non-V Pokemon at a time, so if they want a Rapid Strike flow, they can't knock out 2 Sobbles or they can't knock out 2 Mareep. So there are play arounds and deck buildings to get around this issue, and I really don't think it's that much of an issue, because I do like that you can have a bad matchup to Rapid Strike Urshifu based on its strategy, rather than, oh, it just hits you for weakness and blows you up. I really appreciate that we actually are going to have some strategy-based matchups, as opposed to, oh, my bad matchup is because I'm weak to this. Well, against Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, if you have a bad matchup to it, a lot of times it's going to be because they can snipe around you, or they can spread damage in this way or that way, and not necessarily because you're weak to it. So I do appreciate that factor. And yeah, people probably complain about bench sniping, but I think it's the lesser of 2 evils, or the lesser of all the evils that we've had recently as the problems in the Pokemon trading card game standard format. Next question asks, asides Leafeon, will we get anything to add to Rillaboom decks after Team Up leaves? So I think the poster meant after all the Sun and Moon sets leave and Rowlet and Alolan Exeggutor go along with it, which is a big deal for the Rillaboom decks. So Leafeon VMAX, when I first read this comment, I thought about Leafeon VMAX. So that wouldn't necessarily even be a card you want in Rillaboom decks. The only synergy it would have is they're both grass type. But Leafeon V, however, gets you a turn 1, essentially turn 0, turn 1 going first, energy acceleration guaranteed with its ability. And that could be the Rowlet replacement, because even if you don't get your Rillaboom set up until turn 2 or turn 3 or whenever, that Leafeon gets you an extra energy acceleration, so you could still use 3 energy attacks on turn 2, like let's say Dhelmise VMAX's attack to do 240 damage for 3 energy. You can still do that with the help of Leafeon V on turn 1, even if you don't get Rillaboom stage 2 evolved by turn 2. Like you typically would with Rowlet and Alolan Exeggutor's tag team's free attack to evolve it right up on turn 1. So Leafeon V is a big addition for Rillaboom decks or grass decks in general. I also think Leafeon V could even be played in non-grass decks with a couple of grass energy thrown in just to search it out of the deck and accelerate it on turn 1 going first. Other than that, I don't think that you get any great options for grass decks or Rillaboom decks specifically, but I think Dhelmise VMAX is still a good attacker for it. Leafeon V can accelerate energy, and you still have colorless attackers like Double V and Cramorant V to consider for Rillaboom decks as well. Professor Poke asks, will the release of Rhian increase the viability of stage 2s? So I think Rhian is a very good supporter card coming out of Evolving Skies. It reads you can only use this card if one of your Pokemon were knocked out on your opponent's last turn, and Rhian accelerates a basic energy from the discard pile to one of your Pokemon, and then if you do that, you can search your deck for any one card. So this helps 2 problems that stage 2 decks have, which are chaining stage 2s, essentially setting up one after the first one or the second one gets knocked out. It can search your deck for a rare candy or the Pokemon to evolve if you already have the rare candy in your hand. It also fixes the problem of you're losing resources almost every turn when that Pokemon's knocked out, whereas VMAX decks lose resources every 2 or every 3 turns because their VMAXs will typically survive a hit. So Rhian also gets an energy back onto the board, so you can get an energy onto the board and attach for turn, which I think will increase the viability of stage 2s that are right at the cusp of already being good, like Cinderace from Sword and Shield with the Libero ability that allows you to accelerate energy to itself when it switches, and also the Cinderace with the single strike emblem that does more damage for each prize card your opponent has already taken, since that one attacks for 2 energy, and Rhian could get it set up in just 1 turn, and the Libero Cinderace can actually get itself set up in 1 turn without the help of Rhian. So I think cards like that are already almost good enough to compete will be helped by Rhian, but I'm not sure that Rhian, actually I'm positive that Rhian will not just plunge all stage 2s into viability. It's much more complicated than that with the deck space and the resources and the time it takes to get set up and the overall consistency. But I do think Rhian might be able to help a couple of good stage 2s just get a tiny bit better and a little more consistent to maybe actually be a meta deck. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of QCC, and we'll be continuing on the Evolving Skies topic for a couple more episodes at least, since the set is coming out at the end of this month and there's a lot to talk about. So if you have any of your own questions, comments, or concerns, please leave it down in the comments section for me, and I'll review all of the things that get left and see what's going to make it into the next episode. So like I said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for daily Pokemon TCG content and leave a like on the video because it really does help. And if you're interested in ptcgo codes or my standard format deck lists, please check out the links for PotownStore.com and PokemonCard.io in the description down below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.